Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. It is Tuesday, all you minties, and this is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. So that means it's time to take an advanced look at all of these collected editions coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of all of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on March 26th or 27th, depending on where you get your books. We have a variety of titles here and a variety of different formats. And as always, I leave in the description of the video the timestamp so you can jump around in case you're only curious about one or two books, or if you don't want any kind of spoilers going into the books that you're going to get. And before going any further, though, don't forget to smash that like button. That goes a long way for us here on the channel. Very small thing you can do, but it means the world. Alright, we've got some epic collections. We've got not just classic epics, but also modern epics. We've got some new series. We've got a mini-series. We've got events. We've got a fat trade. And we've got a book that my wife already reviewed. So we'll probably, let's start with Ultimate Invasion. And then we have a Marvel Masterworks. So, yeah, let's kick it off with Ultimate Invasion. Ultimate Invasion. Now, this is a book that the astonishing Melanie has already done a overview of, so I'll just drop the link up above if you want to click on the deep dive of Ultimate Invasion. But this book collects Ultimate Invasion 1 through 4, and it has 192 pages. And it was solicited as a Treasury edition, but ended up coming out as a trade paperback and retailing for $24.99. So it is Jonathan Hickman, and it is Brian Hitch, and going back to an Ultimate Universe is what I will say. Now, if you don't want to know the pitch at all, you don't want to know who the characters are, by all means, skip to the next book. But I do have to talk about what the pretty interesting pitch is. Okay, for anybody that doesn't care about spoilers, 2 months ago in the 616 universe, so the universe that's been around for most people since 1961 and longer, we have a group of people that are breaking out this guy right here. It probably doesn't mean much to a lot of people because he's naked, but once he turns around, it turns out that this guy is the Maker from the Ultimate Universe, who's been a villain here in the 616 universe for quite a number of years, since Secret Wars. So what he needs from them is his clothes and this weapon that he puts together to melt them, and making people think that he never left the building, this facility. So he has escaped. So what is the Maker trying to do? So the rest of the story is about how our superheroes are trying to find the Maker and trying to figure out what he's doing. And what his ultimate goal is, I did not even plan that, I swear that's not a dad joke, is to make an Ultimate Universe again. He can reshape a universe that nobody has tapped, where the heroes are still sort of new, and shape it into the way that he wants it to be. So this is when a bunch of timelines, and you have a bunch of dimensions, because we are talking about the multiverse, when they're starting to merge and collide. So there are some key players here. I don't think this is 100% necessary to read. I've read Ultimate Spider-Man, I've read Ultimate Black Panther, and I've yet to read Ultimate X-Men, but it has just a little bit of ties to Ultimate Spider-Man, and I think one or two things about Ultimate Black Panther. I'm not sure about Ultimate X-Men because I haven't read that yet, but it's not 100% necessary to read. It is just how the Maker is invading a world and trying to reshape it in the way that he seems it should fit him. So that's exactly what this is. In the back, you do have some variant covers. So you have Ed McGuinness, Russell Dauterman, John Tyler Christopher, Sarah Pichelli, Peach Momoko, Ron Lim, and In-Hyuk Lee, Julian Totino de Tesco, and then some thumbnail size covers there. And that is Ultimate Invasion. Next up is Immortal X-Men, Volume 4. This is the Kieron Gillen series, collecting Immortal X-Men 14 through 18. And before cracking any more open, I will say that you had to have read the Hellfire Gala 2023 to enjoy the events here, or rather to at least figure out what is happening here. So this collects Immortal X-Men 14 through 18. The book has 136 pages and retails for $17.99. So you have Lucas Wernick and Paco Medina doing most of the artwork here, Juan José Riep and David Curiel doing the color, with Clayton Cowles doing the lettering for the most part. So in the aftermath of the Hellfire Gala, the 2023 Hellfire Gala, we do find Professor Xavier again alone in his island. But what I like about how Kieron Gillen is handling this, so there was a big massacre in the Hellfire Gala. Instead of doing what I've seen a lot of writers do in the past, where Professor Xavier is reflecting on his mistakes by going back to a certain time in his life, he's not really doing that here. He's reflecting on his mistakes while moving the character forward without having to have these big, deep emotional flashbacks. And I really enjoy that about Gillen's take on Xavier's. Like, he blames himself for what happened now that Orchis is out there trying to capture everybody, but he's trying to figure out how to fix it, not just feel sorry for himself, even though he's on that island and he could be alone. And this is where you find out exactly where some of these characters ended up. You have Sebastian Shaw along with Tessa, and they're trying to profit on this big giant tragedy that happened. We finally get to see where Exodus ended up. So it's interesting reading these in trade paperback, because I've seen how the characters are, where they are in the pages of the X-Force and Wolverine books. But reading Immortal X-Men, it gives you a bigger picture as to where Exodus took hope and destiny, and why it's this desert, and how many mutants are exactly in this desert. And ironically enough, or maybe not irony, because we are talking about a character named Exodus. But the rest of this is them trying to figure out how to get away from Orchis and how they can fight back. So it's another one of these aftermath issues and leading into the whole fall of X. And we do have some returning characters through here, not just Mother Righteous. By the end of this, you do get a feeling that something big is coming. And we haven't seen Sinister for a little bit. We get to see what exactly is going on with Jean Grey, and is this a flashback with Apocalypse? What exactly is going on? So that's pretty much what this is, without going too deep into spoilers. It is the aftermath of the Hellfire Gala, and how the Immortal X-Men are dealing with this big, horrible tragedy that just happened like minutes before this particular trade. In the back is where you're going to find the textless covers in full splash page mode, and then your thumbnail cover. Whoa, Emma, my goodness. And some of them in splash, some of them in thumbnail size. 136 pages, $17.99. Ghost Rider Volume 4, Rite of Passage. This is another series that is being written by Benjamin Percy. But to me at least, I feel like this series has been so good. It's dark. I always have to look to make sure. Okay, it's rated teen plus, but man, there's some things in here that I was wondering what it was rated. So we just got out of the crossover with Wolverine, because Benjamin Percy's still also writing Wolverine. You have him writing the whole book with Carlos Nieto on artwork, with Corey Smith and Brent Peoples and Oren Jr., and Carlos Nieto and Brent Peoples doing the inks, Brian Valenza doing the colors, and then the letters by Travis Lanham. So this is still Johnny Blaze. He's still traveling around this country with Talia Warroad, who was a member of S.H.I.E.L.D., but then decided to start traveling with him. Now, collected in here is the Ghost Rider 2022 series, 18 through 20, but just the A story of 20, and then issue number 21, and then Ghost Rider Annual number 1, and that's what we kick it off with. In Ghost Rider Annual number 1, we have the return of the Hood, who's one of my favorite characters, created by Brian K. Vaughan, and it makes total sense why he would show up in a story like this, because you know that his cloak and his boots, they all have a demonic origin. We have Elsa Bloodstone showing up through here, and it's still, like I mentioned, Johnny Blaze with Talia Warroad traveling the country. She was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and then she got involved with Johnny, and now she's got really close with him. The big story arc that is happening through here is about her. This focuses on her childhood and how she ended up getting her powers, what happened to her parents, because getting to know the character through Johnny Blaze, she's been laying hands as to how long she's had this ability, this supernatural power, and her past. So we do have a story that takes place in the past, and we have a story that takes place in the present day. And her past actually involves Doctor Strange. Now, in the present day, we do have the cult of Mephisto that want to take Talia's magical gifts away from her. But not just her. They want to rip these magical gifts away from her. So, do we see Mephisto by the end of this? Whenever you have the cult of Mephisto, I guess it's a good start. But it's both of them again, traveling the country and running into supernatural forces. And yeah, actually, this is the last page I want to flip to, because there's something big that happens after that big kiss. So the book has 128 pages, retailing for $17.99. All the way in the back, we have the variant covers, some in splash page and some in thumbnail size. And actually, let's look at some more splash and thumbnails. And that is Ghost Rider, Volume 4, Rite of Passage. Star Wars, Dark Droids. Boy, this event right here has been so interesting to read, because I've read parts of Dark Droids in a miniseries and then some other ongoing series, but not the actual event, because the actual event comes out this week. So this is the story that is written by Charles Soule and Luke Ross, and a lot of the things that happen through here, he's been building up for a while. So this collects Star Wars Dark Droids 1 through 5. It's 128 pages and retails for $17.99. So if you've read Dr. Aphra, you may have seen some of the things that are playing out through here. This tells you exactly what happened during the whole Crimson storyline with Lady Kira, and how she ended up getting rid of this ancient deadly entity, and where it ended up. And it ends up in this first issue. And it is so cool how this spark, this life spark that we'll end up calling it the Scourge, how it just becomes sentient, and how it starts asking questions. Because it had bonded before with the character of Dr. Aphra. But here, it's cool to see it just go through the entire androids and robotics and technology, realizing that some droids can be warriors, some of them can be killers, some of them are lovers, some of them are slaves, some of them are nurses, some of them build homes, some of them, they're just completely wasteful. So it's so freaking cool how that happened. It kind of reminded me a little bit, I know it's not everybody's favorite movie, I get it, but I dug the way that Ultron started becoming sentient in the Avengers Age of Ultron. So this is where he is, this Spark Eternal. And he realizes that he can, because he had bonded with Dr. Aphra, he can try to bond with actual androids. So this is where the droids start getting corrupt. And this Scourge that is happening realizes that it can multiply, that it can go into other droids, and eventually taking over an entire ship when it realizes that the droids outnumber the humans on this ship. That was a really freaky, amazing concept. I love that it starts poisoning the ship, it starts pushing people off the ship, until eventually it just takes over the entire ship. And then it starts getting hungry for other droids. And you get other characters from the Star Wars universe that get involved through here. and we've seen it in the crossovers, and you see it in this event. Now, I don't know if there's an omnibus of this coming out or not, but I can see how it would be mapped already by reading some of the trades, where you would stop reading them to come back here to this main series. Because I'm not sure if the cover... No, the cover doesn't reveal it, so I won't say anything. But there are characters that appear through here from all over the Star Wars ongoing series that have been happening for a while now. Because all of this, again, taking place in between episodes 5 and 6. So in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So you don't see Han for a while because, well, he's still hanging out with Jabba the Hutt. But I do like the aspect of the droids and how it quickly spreads this scourge and what their ultimate goal is. And what happens to the people that have robotic parts on them or have had them in the past? Do they still get infected? It was a cool concept. I really enjoyed the story. And I didn't see the ending coming. So let's look in the back here. We'll look at some of the extras right here. Like these connecting covers extras. I thought they were toys. These are the toy covers right here by John Tyler Christopher. And the Scourge variants. D-Squad was fun. Now I know where that ties in. But this is Star Wars Dark Droids. $17.99, 128 pages, collecting all 5 issues of the miniseries. Deadpool versus Wolverine. No epic, no saga, that's just what it's called, and it's a thickie. So it's kind of like an epic collection. Not quite as thick as an epic, but it is a thick book. This book has 336 pages and retails for $39.99. So what are the contents of the book? So we've had the Deadpool vs. Deadpool Corp. And now we have Deadpool versus Wolverine. Here's all the writers: Larry Hama, Chris Golden, Joe Kelly, Mark Andreyko, just to name a few, and then Ben Herrera, Walter McDaniel, Rob Liefeld, Ron Lim, Vince Russell, Whitney McFarlane, Norm Rapman, and Jeremy Freeman, just to name a few of the pencilers and inkers: Mary Javins and Ian Laughlin. Some of the colorists and the letterers here: Pat Brazo and Dave Sharp. So what this means is that this is going through different eras of Deadpool and just collecting any time he fought Wolverine, starting with Wolverine 88. And also collected in here is Wolverine 154 and 155. Deadpool 27, Cable and Deadpool 43 through 44, Wolverine Origins 21 through 25, Wolverine Deadpool the Decoy, and then material from Wolverine Annuals 95 and 96, or 99. So if you have the Epic Collections of this right here, Wolverine 88, this is the exact same scan. Don't expect it to have been better. It's the exact same scan as the Deadpool Classics. I would love for them to touch up this era where the colors just made it so difficult to scan these. You do have artwork here by Adam Kubert, but also Fabio Laguna, who at the time was known as a Jim Lee clone. So you see a lot of Psylocke in here. You see a lot of Jim Lee Wolverine through here. And just a lot of different poses that he had used over the years. And you also have Deadpool here. This is the Joe Kelly era with Dr. Bong, where he's fighting Wolverine. But this collection is really interesting. And yes, of course, it's because of the movie that's coming out. But what makes this collection interesting is that each fight is a little bit different. It's not just going at each other's throats. Sometimes the fight is taking place mentally. And then sometimes the fight is taking place physically. You do have these Rob Liefeld issues right here that are plotted by him. Eric Stevenson doing the scripting, and they're also penciled by him. And he does his own inks too. Norm Rapman does the inks on these. And this introduces us to Deadpool and a whole new team of characters called the Scourge, like Pigskin and Vance Rebus and Megamax and Minimax and Reckless Eric and Deadeye Dick. Those characters who play a bigger part later on. You have the administrator, I think is his name. It's just goofy fun with the co-creator of Deadpool, now writing Wolverine for these few issues. This is the Fabian y Ciesa series, Cable and Deadpool. Now, I will say something. If you've never read Cable and Deadpool, or if you have the Deadpool and Cable omnibus and you haven't read it yet and you're reading this, this might spoil something big that happens through the series. And just rereading these 2 issues, and I'll be honest, these are the only 2 issues I reread through this, because I've read all these stories so many times, especially this Wolverine, and then the ones in the back just once. But damn, I miss that series. I miss Fabian Nicieza writing Deadpool. He's so good. He's got his voice down. Daniel Way's Deadpool or Wolverine Origins is back here. And this is, of course, the big fight by Daniel Way, and it's drawn by Steve Dillon. And it's the fight against Wolverine through these 4 issues of Wolverine Origins. In the back is where you're going to find the Wolverine Deadpool decoy, which is so ridiculous. It's them teaming up to fight the Stalker. So sometimes they're fighting each other, and then sometimes they have to fight each other. In the back is where you're going to get some variant covers here, or the connecting covers. But this book has 336 pages and retails for $39.99. And that is Deadpool versus Wolverine. Wonder Man, the Saga of Simon Williams. Now, this one is labeled a saga book, so they are these thick books that, just about as thick as epic collections, but not quite epics. Maybe one day we'll get a Wonder Man epic line, not sure. But this book collects just a variety of stories to kind of get you to know the character in a deep level, because it showcases not just his first appearance, but also some miniseries that, honestly, there's one miniseries in here I had never read. So collected in here is Avengers number 9, 152 to 153, Wonder Man number 1, the 1986 one-shot, tells of the Marvel's Wonder Years 1 and 2. That's the series I had never read. Avengers 2, Wonder Man and the Beast, the 3-issue miniseries, and Wonder Man, the 2006 series, 1 through 5, and then material from Avengers Annual number 6. Now, you may have the Wonder Man Omnibus, and it's doing a lot of dipping with that. You may have the Avengers Omnibus, and it's doing some double dipping with that. But I will say, that Wonder Man 2006 series by Peter David is so good. And I think it did get a trade paperback. So if you don't have that trade paperback and you're thinking about getting this, that alone is worth it, because that miniseries is so underrated. And Peter David returns back to the character, because he did write him during the early 90s. So we have his first appearance, how Simon Williams ended up working with Baron Zemo, and his role was to just infiltrate the Avengers, and then he ended up betraying them. But then he thought, wait, I'm not a bad guy, I'm a good guy. So he betrayed Baron Zemo, meaning that the poison inside of him would never be cured, and he ended up dying, and he died an Avenger. Now, what's really cool about collections like this is that they do give you a page when he started coming back. That sets up the next issue right here. This is all from Avengers 151. That sets up issue 152 when he came back from the dead. And you'll see him have that costume. This is, oh my gosh, there's so much going on through here that leads into that Avengers Annual. You've got like 3 or 4 different stories. It's not just Wonder Man coming back. You've got so much going on. Like the Living Laser right there, or the Wizard coming back, and the whole lineage of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. But you do get some classic artwork. Then you get the one-shot right here. This is the one that's written by David Michelinie. And this is the one from 1986, where he's trying to make it into Hollywood, but also balance his time being a superhero. This I had never read. This is the Tales of the Marvel's Wonder Years, and there's 2 issues of this. And it's all about the Wonder Man fan club. So it's written by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. Igor Cordy doing the artwork in here. A lot of people are probably familiar with him during his New X-Men run, and he also did the Soldier X series. And you have Richard Starking doing the lettering. But when Igor Cordy takes his time, he is a great artist. Like, that stuff on Soldier X I was a big fan of. But he does his own colors here and finishes. So this is all about this young lady right here that introduces herself to the fan club. So this is the Wonder Man fan club. And this is Cindy. And Cindy talks about her time when she was a kid, how Wonder Man rescued her from Red Ronin. And it's all done in this type of artwork right here. And he gave her his glasses that he's wearing. So it's all about how these characters interact with Wonder Man, and what ends up happening to Wonder Man, because keep in mind, this is a series that was also written around the time Kurt Busiek's run was going on in the Avengers. So something big happens to Wonder Man's life. And then we have the miniseries right here that reunites the characters of Wonder Man and the Beast. Yes, the Avengers 2, also written during the time of Kurt Busiek's run on Avengers. This is drawn by Mark Bagley and written by Roger Stern, who's no stranger to either character. But the one I was talking about right here is this series. This is the one by Peter David, and this is just Wonder Man. And this is drawn by Andrew Curry, and Todd Nauck does one issue, so it's reuniting Todd Nauck and Peter David together. But this starts off in the not so distant future, or maybe a real distant future, where you have an older Simon Williams. He's walking around and reminiscing of a simpler time. And this is Wonder Man and how he runs into this killer right here, this assassin named Lady Fair. But he has faith in her because he himself was a villain at one time. And if somebody gave her a second chance, he believes that he can turn her into a good person. So he gets his buddy Beast involved, he gets Carol Danvers involved, and each issue starts with him in the future reminiscing about this past. Why this lady right here, this fair lady, impacted his life so much. So you get a lot of her background. Let me just show you a little bit of the Todd Nauck artwork, because he does, I think it's the 5th issue if I'm not, yeah, he does this issue right here. So it's just really cool to see him reunited with his Young Justice co-creator, Peter David. And I'll let you find out how that ends. But that is a series that I don't hear enough people talk about. So this is the Avengers 2, Wonder Man and the Beast and Marvel Tales. And this is reprinting the Avengers 2 miniseries, and the cover there is by Nick Bradshaw. And then you have the Marvel Tales introduction here by Ralph Macchio, and then the sketches in the back by Andrew Curry. The book has 400 pages and retails for $44.98. And we have reached the part of the video where I remind people to smash that like button, and also to check out all of these spines from the books coming out this week. Alright, let's continue this overview. Joining the Marvel Modern Epic Collections is Spider-Girl. So this is Volume 1 Legacy. Previously printed as a complete collection, but now coming out with a new trade dress. But it is the same mapping, it's the same stories. So if you have that already, you know, maybe think twice about getting this, but I understand some people like to have all their books looking the same on the bookshelf. I get it. So this is the first Spider-Girl Modern Era Epic Collection. And as I mentioned, it was collected in complete collections that went all the way to volume, I think it was volume 4 if I'm not mistaken. And then volume 5 of the Modern Epics is coming out later this year. So collected in here is Spider-Girl 0, otherwise known as What If, issue 105, so this issue right here. And then Spider-Girl 1 through 15, the half issue and annual $19.99. The book has 456 pages and retails for $44.99. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, this book right here gets my stamp of approval for this week. This is one of my most favorite comics. I wasn't reading comics when this was coming out. I had taken a break from comics, and it was just such a pure delight to read. Whenever I ended up getting my buddy Shaka actually gave me his 2 long boxes of Spider-Man titles, and in there was a huge run of Spider-Girl. Absolutely loved it. So why is What If collected in here? What If is technically her first appearance, which is why they rebranded it as Spider-Girl issue number 0. And we are introduced to this possible future where Mary Jane and Peter Parker actually had a baby girl. And this is May. This is May Parker, otherwise known as Mayday Parker. And of course, you learn through here that he had this baby, and then his final fight with Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn ended up dying, and he got really hurt. So he decided to give up the role of Spider-Man. So Spider-Man hasn't appeared for a long time until this goblin comes a-knocking. And he wants Peter Parker. They've got some unfinished business. I love this part right here. So freaking awesome. Tom DeFalco, Ron Frenz, and of course Patrick O'Leaf. But this is the Ron Frenz issue. So he tells his daughter, May, that tell your father to meet me at the bridge. And she's like, bridge? What bridge? He says, trust me, he'll know. And of course he'll know. So Peter, against all his might, decides to go and see the new goblin. Who could it be? Well, by that hair, you might be able to tell, it is somebody in the Osborn line. Now, also interesting is that this is during the M2 era. So you have like the Avengers line that took place in this particular universe. So she has her own universe. So she wants to help out. She's getting all these abilities at the very beginning, like she's dunking that basketball. She learns that who her father was, and she wants to take his costume. So to help out her dad, because the Green Goblin's got him and he's not coming out there as Spider-Man. So she comes in and saves not only her father, but her mother. And defeats the Green Goblin, gets him arrested, they lock him away, and she makes a promise to Peter and Mary Jane Parker to never wear the costume again. Little did they know, or that she knew, that she was such a popular character that they gave her her own ongoing series. And that's what you're going to be reading about through here. You have Pat O'Leaf doing the artwork, or the pencils. You have Al Williamson doing the inks, Janice Chang doing the lettering, and Christy Sheely doing the coloring, and of course, Tom DeFalco writing the stories. Ron Frenz actually co-plotting the stories through here. So since she got rid of the costume in the first issue, she has to fight like this for a little while still donning the web shooters. And what's really interesting about this series is that if you were a fan of Spider-Man, there's a lot of characters that got older and went a different path in their lives. And that's what I enjoyed about this. Now, my oldest daughter, when she was about 7 or 8 years old, I used to buy her the digest-sized books of this series. And she loved the character. And it was so cool to see it through her eyes, because she had never read the classic stuff, not until she started reviewing them here on the channel. So you don't need to have read the classic Spider-Man stuff to enjoy the stories. But if you have, there's wonderful Easter eggs in here, like who her principal is at her school. And she does have her own bad guys, like this Crazy 8, who comes back later on. Who exactly is Dark Devil? I said bad guys, but he could be a member of her supporting cast. She does have friends in school. And I love the relationship between her and Peter, just how close they are. How she's afraid to tell him that she's a superhero, kind of in the same way that he was afraid to tell Aunt May that she was a superhero. So Dark Devil does play an important part. We have the Fantastic Five here, all led by Jonathan Storm, who's the new leader of the Fantastic Five. And you get to see more and more of these characters that you may be familiar with from the 616 universe. But she does have her own, her own Venom. Her own Venom has a little bit of a twist as to who the host of Venom is. And of course, what is a legacy character without having an issue where she meets her predecessor? So there is an issue here where she gets to travel through time and ends up teaming up with not the Amazing Spider-Man, but the Spectacular Spider-Man. She does get that issue where she travels back in time, hangs out with Aunt May. Oh, it's so wholesome. I love the stuff in here. And if you've never read it, you are in for a treat. It's the character. What is this character's name? Misery. Yeah. Oh, this goes into some dark territory with this character and what she does with Mayday Parker. Now the Avengers decide that maybe she can join them one day. Maybe she can just be a backup member. And yes, even Wolverine has his own legacy character with Wild Thing. Now, as the series progresses, the series did outsell all the other titles. And eventually, the M2 universe kind of got done away with. So she was about the only character left. From time to time, they'll keep appearing through here. But not as much as they take the spotlight in the first few issues. Especially in this first collection. So the book has 456 pages and retails for $44.99. And I'm glad they resurrected it like this in a modern epic collection. So I hope they continue making these, because they are some of the best comic books, not just Spider-Man related comic books, but comic books in general. And that is Spider-Girl Modern Epic Collection, Volume 1, Legacy. How in the world did I choose Spider-Girl as my pick of the week instead of Wolverine? It's just that good, trust me. Wolverine Epic Collection, The Return of Weapon X. And this is Volume 14, the 2000 to 2002 era. And yes, we are talking about those leather jacket eras when it was the Grant Morrison books. But most of the stuff in here is written by Frank Terry and Matt Nixon, Jorge Santamaria, Sean Chen, Mark Teixeira, Dan Fraga, Matthew Marcilla. And then your inkers down here, Nathan Massengill, Norm Rapmond, and Barry Windsor-Smith. Barry Windsor-Smith. What's he doing back? Lettering by Richard Starkings and others. And colorist by Avalon's Raymond Lee. So collected in here is Wolverine Annual 2000. So remember when they had the they stopped using like Annual 15, Annual 16. That happened all the way back in 1995. So during this time, yes, 2000 and 2001 are the annuals in here. And I'm not sure what made them, because I got really confused when I collected comics. And also Wolverine 159 to 171. So what we're looking at is the Frank Terry era that leads into the Weapon X story that has been collected in omnibus format. Not the classic Barry Windsor-Smith story, but the Weapon X ongoing series that featured the characters of Sabretooth and other Weapon X members like Marrow. So that's what this is, and it helps to kind of guide this particular characters that will appear through here into that series, including Sabretooth. The annual has him fighting a different type of sleazoid, the Brood. And then we have Sean Chen supplying a lot of the artwork of the ongoing series. The very first few stories in here, the first story arc, is the best there is, where he is confronted by somebody known as Mr. X. Now, Mr. X doesn't come along. Comes along with a couple of assassin ladies. TNA. That's right. TNA. Or maybe that's T. Maybe that's A. Doesn't matter. Anyway, we also have the return of Sabretooth. Now, Sabretooth is going to go through some changes. He just went through this change in, what was it, the X-Men Forever story with Fabian Nicieza and Mystique. Because that's when they were trying to make the characters look more like their movie counterparts. So they were changing the looks of them, and including Mystique, who had that really weird Fox movie look to her. But Wolverine fights his match here with this guy named Mr. X. There's a couple of other characters that appear through here. One of the most important characters, because like I mentioned, he later on appears in the Weapon X series, and that is the character of Brent Jackson. And Brent Jackson is this S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and he'll play a bigger part later on. He does make a big appearance here. And we have Mark Teixeira coming back. Yeah, that guy right there, Brent Jackson. Coming back to do this fill-in issue right here. It's so good to see him. And not only just him, but also Maverick making an appearance here. So, I don't know how people felt about the Weapon X series. I was a big fan of it. I dug it. I dug a lot of those characters. I like how Marrow was used. And I like the character of Agent Zero. And then, of course, you know, sales weren't that great, so they had to get Wolverine in there. This issue right here, 166, does have this flashback to the Weapon X project, which has been reprinted before in the Weapon X Gallery Edition and other Weapon X collections. But this is drawn and colored and inked by the legendary Barry Windsor-Smith. And there's the return of Maverick right here. And then there's the whole Bloodsport storyline in here. This is drawn by Dan Fraga, where Mr. X just puts a bunch of people in this gladiator pit. And you have the return of Viper. And Bloodscream makes a return through here. And Wolverine is about to wrap up before the series is relaunched Omega Red. You have the Nuff Set issue through the Omega... Yeah, this issue right here. Where the whole issue has no dialogue. But what I was saying is Wolverine is about to wrap up and get relaunched under Greg Rucka. So I'm interested to see how they collect those, if those will be part of the Marvel Epic Collections or will they be the modern Epic Collections. Because when you have things like Spider-Girl, this started before 2001. I wonder how they're going to handle that. Maybe they'll be the modern epics. And some Wizard pinups and house ads. And the Millennial Visions #1 pinup by Al Williamson and Tom Smith. And other epic collections available. 448 pages, $44.99. Last but absolutely not least is the Marvel Masterworks, the Uncanny X-Men, Volume 16. And I will be honest with you, out of all the books here, this is the only one I didn't crack open. This is the only one I didn't reread. Wanted to have this experience with you all. So if you've never read Inferno, if you've never gotten this far and you're reading them in Marvel Masterworks or Omnibus format, the Omnis aren't this far yet. Well, I guess if you have the X-Men Inferno Omnibus, you do. But this will have newly restored artwork because we are talking about the Marvel Masterworks. So again, dust jacket, underneath the dust jacket, Uncanny X-Men Volume 16. Goodness. Chris Claremont, Louis Simonson, Mark Silvestri, Walter Simonson, Arthur Adams, Rick Leonardi, Dan Green, Joseph Rubinstein, Bob Wyzek, P. Craig Russell, Terry Austin, Hilary Barta, Al Milgram, Tom Orsachowski, Joe Rosen, Glynis Oliver, Petra Scadesi, Tom Vincent, Gregory Wright, and Innocenti Bob Harris. Those are the people that made all these books. These are my childhood stories. So collected in here is Uncanny X-Men 232 to 243 and Annual number 12, as well as X Factor 37 through 39. Introduction by Chris Claremont, which is the very first thing I'm going to read as soon as I'm done recording this video, because I just love that time capsule, that going back to those eras. Oh my gosh, how did I not pick? Okay, maybe I didn't open this up to reread because I didn't want it to be my pick of the week, but oh my god, it's so good. Especially with the Brood Saga, this is such a freaking awesome story. Nobody talks about, when people talk about the Sleazoids, when people talk about the storylines that are the classic Brood stories, they're usually the classic Dave Cockrum stories, and then of course the Paul Smith stories, but Earthfall was my favorite. I love the way that Claremont writes the narration about like these characters. Her just exploring. Sally Harding, 27, she was a teacher, she wanted to be Indiana Jones. Gets killed. Oh my gosh! This is when the Sleazoids, the Brood, take over mutants. So they have mutant abilities, and they're also freaking Brood. It's such an awesome story. And this is where you get the classic Wolverine turning into the Brood cover by Mark Silvestri. That I think that's what they based the Hasbro toy on. And of course the Outback era of the X-Men, which is my favorite era of X-Men. Beautiful restored artwork here. Beautiful inks. You have Madeline Pryor just going deeper and deeper into just depression and severe insanity when she realizes what she is. And like I mentioned, spoilers, this is the scene that my buddy Peter was talking about when Maddie's having a dream, when she realizes that she is nothing but a clone of Jim Lee. What the hell am I saying? Of Jean Grey. Uncanny Omar Talk Pretty One Day. Yeah, this is the cover right there. I think it was because I was talking about Jim Lee clones earlier with Fabio Laguna's artwork. But yes, a clone of Jean Grey. While the X-Men are fighting the Brood, she's getting corrupted and manipulated by evil forces from under New York City. So this is where the X-Men will fight against a bunch of demons in the upcoming Inferno crossover. And this is the Evolutionary War storyline in here with Arthur Adams, where a lot of people think that Colossus had a kid at the end. Well, maybe. And then, of course, the X-Babies showing up through here. And then you have the Rick Leonardi issue, which introduces us to Genosha. Damn, there are some good stories collected in here. And that is the nation that the X-Men will go and fight and try to liberate during Extinction Agenda. And if you read Grant Morrison's run, you know what ends up happening to them. But this is the storyline that introduces us to the nation of Genosha. And it's just firing on all cylinders, one great story after another, and then we get the prelude to Inferno, where Madeline Pryor officially becomes the Goblin Queen. This is where Mr. Sinister is revealed to be pulling all the strings of all of these characters, including Sim and Nastareth, to lead into the big crossover where the demons are going to invade New York City. And there's, I mean, for a comic book, I do remember, like, some of the stories in here, right here, where this family, like, with some kids, are tourists in New York City, going to the Empire State Building, getting on the elevator, and the elevator eats them, and there's just blood right here, and the guy that's cleaning doesn't even notice. Damn, that is dark! I'm surprised they were able to approve that. So, this is also the big reveal where, you know, the world thinks the X-Men are dead after the fall of the mutants. And the X-Men, for the most part, believe that Jean Grey is dead. But she's been with X-Factor for a long time. Except for Wolverine. Because he was able to catch her scent in the tunnels during the mutant massacre. So he knew that she was alive. And Storm confronts him about why didn't he tell her? And yes, during this time, Storm does have her powers back. Now you have Madeline Pryor seducing the other Summers brother, Alex, to do her bidding. And that kickstarts Inferno. So this will lead into the crossover with X-Factor, where the X-Men and X-Factor are reunited. The original X-Men. It's the return of the Marauders. It's the fight with the demons in New York City. It's the Goblin Queen needing a sacrifice of all these babies. It gets into some dark territory. Of all these babies, but she particularly wants one baby in general, and that is Nathan Christopher Summers. And the big reunion right here. Wolverine just laying it on her. Cyclops can't really say anything because there's his wife with his kid. Wow. Talk about awkward. But, you know what? I think I've spoiled it enough. Oh, it's such a good story, though, what ends up happening through here. It's a classic story. It's an amazing crossover. And what else do you get in here? You get the Marvel Age Annual, which they use this as the Inferno direct market crossover. You get this in the... They use this as the cover for the direct market of the Inferno Omnibus. And then a taste of other X-Men titles through here. So this will kind of give you an idea of how... Whoa, what's this? Of how the omnibus will be collected. Okay, it's the Anna Senti commissioned Arthur Adams to create a potential new costume for the X-Men. Oh, that's cool. So the next volumes of the Uncanny X-Men omnibus will have the collection of X-Factor these issues there. This is the Shave Talker, was designed to sit behind comics on the retail. I didn't know about that one. That's beautiful. I've always loved this house hat. And then the timeline of Inferno right here and how it's crossing over. Sim, Nastareth. I love, when I was a kid, saying it fast, it says, like, I figured out that it says Sinister if you say Sim and Nastareth fast enough. I think that's probably the smartest thing I've ever said. I forgot about this piece right here because we're mainly focused on these right here, which they made into the cover of the omnibus. And then this... Oh, damn, that's cool. The Walter Simonson original art and covers and color guide. The trade paperbacks of Inferno and the introduction by Mark Bernardo from the X-Men Inferno trade paperback from 1996. The Earthfall. This is the reprint right there. And then the cover to the X-Men vs. the Brood by Roger Cruz. Playing with the A-Team by John Ostrander from X-Men vs. the Brood, 1997. And then the biographies on the creators right here. 504 pages. This one's $100. Most of the time these are $75, but this is over 500 pages. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you're picking up, which ones you are glad that are back to print, which ones you're hoping that they will collect in an omnibus format, and what your pick of the week would have been. Of course, mine, so hard not to go with Inferno, but I had to go with Spider-Girl. A lot of great books this week, but Scott, whenever we're talking about Mayday Parker, that's where I usually lean towards. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to check us out on Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.